Hey guys, I just wanted to do a quick video about why some people will not get most of their pages indexed in Google even if they're spinning their text to 50% uniqueness. What I will discuss here are tips and tricks to achieve near 100% indexing. The fact of the matter is that Google is catching on to the old style of spinning. Today, I will talk about how to spin your articles so they look like they were written by completely different people. Near the end of this video, I will be discussing a brand new piece of software that makes spinning actually fun, and it's much better than Content Boss. Watch this presentation until the end for that. Now, the vast majority of people are spinning their articles like this. They're simply replacing words or maybe phrases with alternatives. Google is catching on to this style because so many people are doing it. Spinning is not just for us SE nukers, it is incredibly popular now in the SEO and internet marketing world because it works so well. So Google had to do something about it. Google has some pretty smart people working for them, and they seem to have come up with some kind of algorithm which checks sentence synonymity between multiple articles. So you can't simply replace words with synonyms anymore and expect all the different versions to be indexed. But for those of us who need multiple versions of their articles indexed in Google, how do we go about doing that? Now, obviously, you could write a different article for each website you post to, but that would require 50 different completely unique articles for one SENUK submission. And you'd go broke if you were outsourcing this, or would need finger replacement surgery if you were doing this yourself. So let's say you had an article like the one shown here. What would it look like after SENUK spins the output? Sentence variation 1. Most of individuals are rewriting their content like this. They are merely changing terms or maybe phrases with possibilities. Variation 2. A large portion of people are rewriting his or her post like this. They're basically replacing words or maybe phrases with alternate options. Sentence variation 3. Most of the individuals are mixing his or her content like this. They're simply changing words and maybe phrases with possibilities. When Google sees an article like this, it checks for a few things. Number 1, it checks for the layout of the article. Do all the articles share the exact same kind of layout? Are they all using bullets or the lack thereof? Are they all using images or the lack thereof? How many images are they all using? What about other HTML entities like bolded text, italics, etc.? Google needs to see variation in all of these because naturally, if the articles have different authors, they'll have variation in all of these points. Problem number 2, what about the word/sentence count? Since most people are either spinning words or phrases, most spun articles have the exact same sentence count. In the example I showed earlier, all 3 of the articles had 2 sentences each. Isn't that a dead giveaway? No matter how unique you've made each article, if it has the exact same sentence count between 100 other articles, what is the probability of that happening naturally? Won't Google raise eyebrows to that? And what about the word count? Since many people replace one word with another, the word count between these kinds of articles is also pretty much the same. There might be some variation in word count between articles, but if it is more or less the same, does that look natural at all? Also, the synonymity between the sentences. I'm not sure exactly how they figure out sentences have the same meaning, but it's probably some algorithm which checks synonymity between individual words in a sentence, and if it passes a certain threshold, they decide that the entire sentence is synonymous with the other. And what about the places where the articles link to? Are they all linking to the exact same place, which is an easy dead giveaway that they were authored by the same person? And if they link to different places, are any of these places actually linked to by other people? Does that page, and I don't mean the domain, is that page already have some kind of respect in Google's eyes? Lastly, were all these spun articles found around the same date by the Googlebot? There will be variation in the time Googlebot discovers your article, but is that variation small? Were they all found within a day or two of each other? Okay, so let's say most of our articles have the problems mentioned here. So when Google detects these kind of things, it chooses only a few of the articles that are sufficiently unique from each other and throws the rest away. Hence, they're not indexed. So how do we solve this problem? We need to figure out a way to produce versions of our articles that look as though they were written by different people. So the question we need to ask ourselves is this: what do articles written by different authors look like, and how can we simulate this? Easy. Just go search the net for any topic that a few people would have written about and compare the results. I did a sample search for Asus U80V laptop review. Here's 3 sample pages. Sample number 1 is trustedreviews.com. Now let's take a look at this page. Over here we have a little bit of text. We have a video here, a little bit of text again, a picture, a little bit of text, a picture, a little bit of text, a picture, and this is how all the different pages of this review are divided. Now let's look at the next review. This is CNET Australia. Okay, so let's take a look here. We have a bolded piece of text at the top. We have a heading up here. We have a table which summarizes all the good and bad about this laptop. And then we have these different paragraphs. So compared to our last review that we saw over here, there's actually not too much text here, but there's a lot of text here. There's a small photo at the top left, a heading here, and 2 fairly long paragraphs. Actually a bunch of fairly long paragraphs that are divided between each other with line breaks. Now let's look at the next one. This is pcpro.co.uk. Over here we can see it follows a completely different structure. Unlike the paragraph separation here, this is pretty much just a long piece of flowing text. And once again, the paragraphs are divided by line breaks, and which is good. It makes the content easy to read. And we have a couple of pages of text here. And then we have these links up here for specs, video, photo, comments, and then we have a gallery up here. So notice that these 3 different pages that I found on the internet, notice the difference in the paragraph structure, the length of the sentences, images, videos, tables, headings, boldings, etc. So how do we simulate this in our Spinner articles? Because essentially that is the only way to convince Google that this was written by different people. The first problem we need to solve is identical layout between all our spun articles. We can solve this by spinning the HTML code. To do this though, you need some basic knowledge of HTML code. Nothing hardcore though. You can just search basic HTML tutorial in Google for some simple tutorials on the most commonly used HTML tags. I will also provide a link in the next slide. The first thing you should start with is spinning the line breaks. Notice how the 3 different laptop review articles we saw all had varying paragraph length. Some had paragraphs with just a few sentences in them, some were longer. We can simulate that too, and on average, the smaller your paragraphs are, the more people will be likely to read them anyway. So you can spin your line breaks just like anything else. Simply add a line break after the curly bracket, as you can see here. So in this example, sometimes the line break will be there, sometimes it won't. You can also add a space character as a third option if you would like. Once you've done that, start spinning the HTML code used to build the page. Since we're hosting the article on different platforms, the navigation bar and other stuff that is used on the website will already vary as it is. So that's good for us. But even inside our article, we want the HTML code to vary, because that's how other people would do it, right? You can spin pretty much anything inside your article. We've provided examples of how to spin things like bolding your text, italicizing it, and a couple of other HTML code options. Or you can start adding headings of different sizes between paragraphs, making your article easier to read as well. Changing the text alignment of different sentences is also a good idea, but don't overdo it, because one sentence left justified and another one right justified looks a little bit wonky. Using bullets sometimes and not others is also a really good idea. Varying images is also a really good idea. Google doesn't just want articles with plain text. They need to be fun to read. So add some images and spin them so that they show up sometimes and not other times. As I mentioned earlier, you need some basic knowledge of HTML code to do all this. The link specified here is a good resource, davesite.com/webstation/html. Just check out the mini chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7, and the short HTML code tag reference near the end. The examples I've given here are just some of the ways to vary your HTML code, but be creative. HTML code is powerful. Use it, mix it up. If you know HTML code well, you know how to create tables using HTML code. Most of the social network nuke sites will support tables, so use them. Just remember, you have one goal in mind: to convince Google that one person didn't write all the possible articles that this spinner article can produce. We've recently introduced a tag which can help you to increase your uniqueness percentage by an insane amount, if you're willing to put in the work. What this new tag does is it basically allows you to write multiple articles inside one article. When you enter this as a spinner article in SENuke, it will produce one of the shown outputs. Notice how the option 1A and option 1B always show together because they're both wrapped inside the £1, and option 2A and option 2B show together because they're both wrapped inside £2. It will never be option 1A and option 2B together, or option 2A and option 3B together, like what you would have with the regular curly brackets for spinning. It's not random choice, it's consistent choice. That's why we call these the new consistent choice brackets. The number between the two hash symbols defines an index for the option. You can have numbers from 1 to 100 in there. Every time SENuke spins the article, it picks one of the numbers randomly, let's call it X, and only shows the text between £X all the way up till £/X. The text between all other numbers is discarded. This is highly useful for adding variation to your spun articles. For example, if you had two stories in your article about your friend Joe and Bob, and you wanted SENuke to show only one of these stories, and later in the article you wanted to mention something about Joe or Bob depending on which one SENuke chose first, you can only do that with the consistent choice brackets. What this allows you to do is write multiple articles inside the same spinner article. Let me show you an example. In this example, SENuke will choose to tell a story about either Bob, Kathy, or Jim. If it starts telling the story about Bob, the rest of the article will be about Bob as well, because the text inside the £1 is associated with Bob, not about Kathy or Jim, like you would get with the curly brackets random choice syntax. This is really useful for adding lots of variation to your article. The reason we added this is because it's much easier to increase uniqueness for an article by adding lots of multiple sub-stories instead of just adding alternatives for sentences and words. Since you can have up to 100 different sub-stories, the sky is the limit to how unique your spinner articles can be. Now, if you spin each sentence inside each story as well, imagine how much variation you can have. First, SENuke will pick one of the 3 stories to show, then it will randomly pick different sentences inside each story, effectively multiplying your uniqueness percentage by 3. Note that using this tag is optional. It can greatly increase your uniqueness and get lots of copies of your articles indexed, but it can take a long time to do. So don't worry if you never get around to it. If you're outsourcing this though, pay the extra few dollars to get these sub-stories added. They will make a big difference. The second problem we have to deal with is the fact that Google detects that multiple spun versions of the article all have the exact same word/sentence count. This is because most people spin by simply replacing one word or one sentence with another. But how natural is it for multiple articles to have the exact same sentence count? Even if the word count varies a bit, do you think that looks natural at all? The solution to this problem is easy. Just add optional sentences or phrases. Notice in the example here, the first option inside the curly bracket is an empty phrase. The second option is he, bracket open, really, pipe, bracket close, loves his job. The third option is a new line character. When you do something like this, the sentence/word count will vary depending on whether SENuke chooses to show that sentence or not, and whether it chooses to show the word really inside that sentence. The increase uniqueness by randomly shortening article feature inside SENuke does something similar by randomly removing sentences, but we suggest doing this manually because that option that is inside SENuke can sometimes create articles that are not really legible because you have no control over which sentences are snipped out and which ones aren't. So we suggest doing this manually, like shown here. When people spin their articles by spinning sentences instead of words, they rewrite the sentences by simply replacing the words with synonyms. An example is this. Curly bracket open, have you heard of the easiest way to lose weight? Pipe, do you know of the fastest method for losing pounds? Curly bracket close. In this example, it's possible to algorithmically figure out whether the sentences are synonymous. What the algorithm has to do is simply check for synonymity between corresponding words in a sentence, and based on the conclusion of this check, you can decide whether the entire sentence is synonymous or not. Google is employing something like this. The solution to this problem is to convey the same message using completely different words. So the first sentence you have is, have you heard of the easiest way to lose weight? Now the second sentence, instead of saying, do you know of the fastest method for losing pounds? Instead of that, if you say something like, a completely new method for shedding those pounds fast has just been discovered, do you know about it? That is a completely different way of conveying the same message, but if Google was to put it through a synonymity check using a thesaurus or something similar, it would fail that check. In essence, it's near impossible for a computer to decide whether these two sentences mean the same thing. The easiest way for Google to find out whether 100 articles were written by the same author is by checking the links in the article. Do they all point to the same location? If they do, you need to vary your links. The rand URLs tag is a good way of doing that. But I realize that the whole point of doing submissions is to build backlinks to one place. So if you can't vary the link targets too much, that's fine. I guess you have no choice. But if you're trying to build domain authority, point your links to many different internal pages instead of just the domain, and you should have much better results. Keep in mind that if you followed everything I've mentioned so far and made your article appear as though it was written by different people, it's kind of okay to link to the same place in all the articles because Google thinks it's different people linking to it. But you have to do a really good job of making it look like it was written by different people. Also, a good way to gain Googlebot's respect is by linking to a page which a lot of other people have also linked to. For example, a popular dig story or a popular YouTube video. If all your links are going to quote-unquote unpopular pages, that looks really fishy. Try to have many of these quote-unquote camouflage links in your article. Spin the link targets. All 100 articles linking to the same dig story kind of defeats the purpose. I realize you might lose some page rank juice because of this, but it's a trade-off between losing PR or not having the article indexed at all. The last problem faced when trying to convince Google that all the articles were written by different authors is the fact that most people just blast out their spun article to all the Web 2.0 sites that SENuke supports all in one day. Isn't that unnatural? Not only does Google suspect the content of the articles to be the same, they were all found around the same date. The solution to this is easy. Spread out your submissions over time and make it uneven. Don't do exactly 10 submissions each day for a few days. Do 3 one day, 10 the next, 7 the next, etc. Isn't that how natural link growth would occur? It's so easy to do submissions with SENuke. All you have to do is start it up for a few minutes each day and press the start button. And SENuke X will make this task a whole lot easier. It'll completely automate the scheduling system. You can set it up for a whole month and walk away. It'll submit a random number of posts spread out over your chosen interval. That's about it. Do everything I've just mentioned and you'll get near 100% indexing. Pretty much all your submissions will get indexed by Google and will probably show up on the first page of results without much effort. Why? Because Google will think all these different pages were written by completely different people. Now, having mentioned all this, I just want to end by letting you know that you don't need to do all of the things that I've mentioned in this presentation. The more you do, the better results you'll get. And they're not really difficult to do either. All the tricks I've mentioned, other than adding the sub-stories, can be done pretty quickly. Some people want to know what's the best way to spin, spinning sentences or individual words. The absolute best way is to spin the sentences and then spin the words inside. Remember, you can have nested spin tags on as many levels as you wish. If you have to choose between spinning the sentences or spinning just the words in one sentence, go for the latter, because having word variations will produce a lot more unique sentences than just having two alternatives to each sentence. If you do go this route, make sure to add optional phrases inside each sentence to reduce the synonymity between sentences and to also have optional sentences between sentences. This makes it difficult for a computer to identify which sentence is supposed to be synonymous with which, and add lots of line breaks and HTML code spinning. Keep your sentences short, and the search engines will love you, and so will the human visitors. Now, if you're too lazy to do all this, you can simply use the other modules in SENuke and you won't be faced with this duplicate content problem. But, and this is a big but, keep in mind that you'll be missing out on an awesome source of backlinks, /rankings, and direct traffic, because these Web 2.0 sites are extremely powerful if used correctly. I'm referring to the Web 2.0 sites in the Social Network Nuke module. And using these websites is the only way to get multiple first page listings in Google. The pages created by the rest of the modules will not rank on the first page of Google. They'll only provide link juice. And remember, if you spin your articles well, you can submit them many times using SENuke without Google picking them up as duplicate content. So you put the work in once and reap the rewards for a long time. All you have to do is change the keywords used in the article and the link targets. Or you can outsource all this. Just hire somebody from odesk.com and give them the link to this presentation. This material is simple enough that almost anyone can figure it out. Or just copy and paste the relevant parts of this if you'd like, and paste them in a Word document and send it to them, because the video transcript will be made available of this recording. Odesk is cool because they have hundreds of thousands of workers from all over the world, especially the Filipino workers. They're awesome. And these people will work for something like $2 to $3 per hour. And you can monitor their work as though they were working in your own office, because Odesk has a special screenshot every few minutes software which sends you a screenshot of their screen to make sure that they're doing their work. Now, I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation that I'd give you a link to a super powerful software that actually makes spinning fun. And here's the link: senuke.com/bestspinner.php. This software makes use of a massive shared database of word replacements. So basically, all of the thousands of users using this software add to the thesaurus used by the software. Since these are real people adding word or phrase alternatives that actually make sense, you can spin your articles really, really fast. With SENuke, you have to spin using the Yahoo thesaurus, which requires a lot of manual labor pruning through the appropriate words. Not so with the software. It intelligently shows you just the words that would make sense in that position. Make sure to watch the demo video on that page till the end. The best feature is shown near the end of the demo video. The feature I'm talking about automatically adds spinner variations to words, kind of like the way Content Boss does with one click. But the text is much more legible than with what Content Boss produces, and there's absolutely no limit to the number of articles you can spin. This is an absolute must-have for every nuker. It's very inexpensive, and once you start using it, it actually becomes kind of addictive. It is our #1 recommendation now instead of Content Boss.